Ricardo, you want to share any words?
Carter should maybe
Yeah.
take Damien's space for now.
Yeah, they might have his internet connection. So,
I want to segue from Damien's contribution into the other aspect of the discussion because we're talking a lot about goals and SMART goals. And I want to lend that information to leadership. A couple
yes.
months ago, I remember telling someone, not because you could make a roti means you could run a roti shop. There are many things that you might be good at, but it does not necessarily mean that you are in a position to create and manage a system, to build a community, to maintain proper business ethics and work standards. The premise is while you might like something, you may not necessarily be good at it. And while you might be good at something, that does not mean that you are good at leading in it. A lot of these SMART goals we've discussed have been based on things that we would like to do. But leadership is not so much about what you would like to do, it's about who you have to be. It is about work that you don't do externally, but work that you do internally so that you could help others do their work. Regionally, we have a tendency to see leadership as being in charge of, seeing leadership as being responsible for. If I am in charge of people, well, then they do what I want. But if I'm responsible for people, I do what they need. The relationship, leadership is an expression of a relationship that is focused on helping other people fulfill their SMART goals, of helping other people to reach their vision. Because as a leader, the people on your team, the people in the community, the people you surround yourself with, supposed to share a similar vision. So I'm going to ask that we apply some of the same principles, not just to work that we want to produce and to things that we want to do and things that we would like to achieve externally, but to consider if we cutting off all of these people around us who not doing anything to help us, what have we been doing to help ourselves? What have we been doing to help them? Who are we in terms of adding value to our own value chain, sorry, or to other people's value chain? I could cut off everybody who dragging me down and still not make any progress, not because of what they were doing, but because of what I am not doing. I like to use the example of littering as showing the difference between fault and responsibility. Now, if my neighbor keep throwing rubbish in the drain and the drain flood, it is not my fault. The neighbor was the one who was throwing thing in the drain. The drain clog up, but no water running in my yard. Now, because it is affecting me, it may not be my fault, but it now becomes my responsibility. Because saying is the neighbor cause it is not doing anything to help me fix it. Responsibility and leadership is about acknowledging what must be done and finding the best way to get there. Leadership is a case of there are things that have happened that I am not is not my fault, but I have accepted responsibility for them. I am going to try to make things better. I am going to try to solve a problem. I'm going to try to be a better person. There are people who did things to me and it was not my fault, but I could be how vexed with them. I could blame them for the rest of our natural lives. If I don't take responsibility for getting better, then they will go on and they will get better and they will do better. And I will still be stuck where I was with what happened to me because it was my fault. So, leadership now is acknowledging that while something may be someone else's fault, as a leader, because I have an objective, I now have a responsibility for it. Recognizing in other people what they are capable of, what they can contribute, or as we so pointed out, what they might be hindering. There are people we let go from our relationships and our lives because of what they're doing to slow you down. And that is one part of it. Establishing boundaries is one thing, but setting a standard is something else. Now that I get all the baggage out of the way, I get all the dead weight cut off, I could still not go a single place because you know what I had all the time? Excuses. When you remove everything that is stopping you from achieving your objective and you still do not get there, now you have another thing to consider. I now have to take responsibility for where I'm going because I can no longer blame what was keeping me back. Another step is to analyze yourself. What do I need to progress? What do I need to become to get where I want to go? And leadership is recognizing that in others and coordinating and serving and creating an environment that gets everyone to their goal. Leadership is very, very difficult. It is not as simple as just being brave and taking front. Sometimes it's about learning when to let other people lead. It's about learning when to let other people speak. It's about listening long enough so that when you reply, you are addressing the team's needs, or you are applying your energy to the mission, to the objective, and not to your own personal motivation. Because you know what? If my neighbor is littering, I could say, I'm not cleaning nothing because it's my neighbor litter and it's my neighbor have the drain flooding. But it coming in your house, it coming in your yard. You could say to yourself, my responsibility is to my yard. But as a leader, I could not just clean the drain, I could talk to the neighbor about what it is he's doing and how it is impacting us, because there will be another neighbor who yard flooding. And now, as a leader, I take responsibility for what happening to that other person. Leadership is about extending your responsibility in areas that are not your fault. It is about achieving an objective and getting the other people on your team and in your community and in your organization to obtain this goal, to reach this place. I don't want to get too long into lecture because you know me, I could talk, but I also like stories. I may not have put it there, but it might be my responsibility to move it. And I could be how vexed and I could be how upset. And I could ask somebody to help me and they don't show up when I want them to show up. They don't show up how I expected them to show up. They don't show up with what I needed from them. But if they showed up, as a leader, I now have to assess the resources available to me, remind myself of what my goal is, and find a way to utilize the resources that are made available to me to fulfill my goal. So your friend will tell you, don't worry about lunch. I will bring lunch for you tomorrow. And then the next day, they bring something you don't even eat. And you're thinking to yourself, but you tell me I was going to bring lunch, and now I can't eat this. Find someone who does eat it, and you trade lunches. What I'm saying is about assessing the situation and trying to meet the objective. But staying vexed with your friend and quarreling with them because they bring the wrong thing, not helping you eat, and you might ruin their appetite. And they would have been trying to help you. And because they didn't help you in the manner that you expect them to, you now sour a relationship and they don't want to help you going forward. Leadership is about negotiating, changing environments, and managing different expectations. So I'm going to ask you guys in closing, because I could go long. In assessing the relationships around you, in auditing your friendships, also consider that there is one common factor to every situation you have ever been in, and it is you. You have a responsibility that while you are cleaning outside, that you'd clean inside. You have a responsibility to look at yourself and say, in 6 months, I might want to achieve this, but in 6 months, I also want to be this. And the be this might be less argumentative. It might be more polite or more patient. It might be more grateful. And you can set steps. I love the goal that said, we are going to compliment people and tell them that you rock. I love that. Be nice. That was a beautiful goal for me because it was an external thing that required an internal behavior. I loved that goal because it was not about doing something, it was about being something. And the way to express becoming that thing was by doing something. I loved it. And that is the kind of work that we could do for ourselves. We could say, listen, Angeli asked me a question. Mr. Ricardo, why don't you celebrate yourself? And then the meeting closed, and it gave me a lot of time to think about it. And I'm still going to have to think about it. The catch is, are we being fair in assessing our relationships if we do not assess ourselves? Are we saying, well, them don't like me, so I wouldn't bother? How is that going to help you in 6 months? How is that going to help you in a year? How is that going to help you reach where you're going? What I'm saying is be fair in your assessment. Be fair. The other people in our lives are not the only people who are keeping us back. Sometimes we keep ourselves back. We get in our own ways. And sometimes when there is nothing to stop us from going forward, it is what we are holding on to that is keeping us from moving. And it does not always have to be a bad thing. It could be a good thing that has expired. So leadership is about applying SMART goals in a responsible manner to your community. On that note, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to contribute. I see Commissioner Cole's hand is up.